Hey there, and welcome to the Weaver's World. This video is the second in a series about how I write my own adventures, which I hope will help you in writing your own. Last time we went from the basic idea of a forest to a mysterious temple dedicated to a forgotten goddess. In this episode, I will show you how you can handle this concept and make it feel more alive, as well as decide on what kind of dangers a group could encounter there. If you have missed the first video or just want to refresh your memory on it, I'll link to it right here, as well as in the description. You will also find the tools and websites I use there. If you find this video helpful or just want to help me out, consider liking this video, subscribing to my channel and tell me about your adventures in the comments. I would love to hear about your ideas. It also really helps my channel. But with all that being said, let's go. Let's look at our map for a moment. It has everything a temple needs really. An altar to pray, some pews, even a statue. Of course, time has taken its toll here and much of it has fallen to ruin, with cobwebs everywhere and nature slowly taking back the land. However, its former grandeur still can clearly be seen in the opulent floor, the statues and the sheer size of the altar relative to the pews and walls. There even is a flight of stairs leading downwards, so we know that this temple has more to offer than meets the eye. When you create an adventure, you also write a story. I know that sounds like it's obvious, but I sometimes need to remind myself of what this actually means. The places your heroes travel to always are the way they are for a reason. Now I know that sounds daunting, but you don't need to have every detail prepared. If you feel up to that task, then of course you can always go for it. But even just thinking about some small, seemingly irrelevant details can make a world of difference. I'll show you what I mean. I placed this temple right into the woods. We can see that there are trees and plants around it, and the ground is relatively undisturbed, so it is far away from civilization and has been for a long time. This makes sense because the temple was dedicated to a goddess of nature, whose worshippers likely felt a connection to it they wanted to express. Still, they used stone in their construction instead of wood, so they planned ahead. This temple was not only meant to be a house of worship, but likely had to house people as well. Maybe the priests and their acolytes, but possibly the occasional traveler as well. This might be where the stairs are headed, the private chambers of those who lived in this temple. Also, we already discussed there is treasure in this temple. Now, simply putting it on the altar would be possible, but that'd be a quick and rather boring adventure. Besides, we never really discussed what that treasure was. A statuette of their goddess made out of gold and precious materials? Possible, but not likely. A goddess of nature would not find much value in such things. But let's think for a moment. Since we are in a fantasy world and gods are pretty much real there, maybe the treasure is a gift of the goddess herself. Maybe a token of her appreciation for the priests of this temple, or something they were tasked with protecting. That would also explain the sturdy building instead of a simple treehouse or cottage, which would also do as a place of worship. After all, building such a temple deep in the forest would take a lot of work, which nobody would do without a good reason. This building was meant to last. That's good, but personally I'm still not happy with it. Surely a goddess of nature could shape a tree into something akin to a building made of stone. It would be far more in line with her ideals and not disrupt nature that much. But maybe this temple originally wasn't dedicated to her. When I made this map, I took some inspiration from churches in medieval Europe, so it most likely was erected as a temple. But to whom? Maybe not the goddess initially, but some other god who had their own reason to let their worshippers build a temple hidden far away from civilization. In that case, the worshippers of the goddess didn't build the temple themselves, but maybe took it from whomever originally built it and consecrated it to their own goddess. That sounds good. Let's go with that. But, with that in mind, suddenly the basement could hold a lot more secrets. So could the relic the players are tasked with finding. Who's to say that it is really a relic of the goddess and not of the deity her worshippers drove from the temple? Something more sinister. I'll leave this up to your fantasy. The relic could just be what is often called a MacGuffin, an item that spurns certain events but is irrelevant in itself. Or it could hold a deeper secret that could be part of a larger plot. This is just one possible thing we can take from the map too. Look at the statue in the upper corner. There is an old campfire next to it. Someone was here before. But who? Why? And how long ago? Maybe they are still there. I'm sure you can find other ideas just from the simple map I drew here. If you allow your mind to wander while looking at your creations, sometimes inspiration will strike you. And that's a thought process you can train. It will become easier with time. As I said before, it's okay to take inspiration from books, movies or video games, as long as you don't outright steal it. Or if you do, at least obscure it a little bit. You can only learn from that. Tell me your ideas for this little adventure and how you got them in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. What good would an adventure be without some danger? After all, we need some pushback for your heroes to overcome, otherwise it wouldn't really feel much like an adventure. The obvious idea is, of course, monsters and other enemies. Most role-playing systems are very keen on combat, and I'll be honest, while this is an easy way to get some action in, I personally think that a lot of adventures are much too combat heavy for my tastes. So while I will of course get some enemies into this adventure, I want to explore other possibilities too. So what else is there? Well, first the characters need to get to the temple, of course. And that won't be easy, since it's most likely hidden in the forest with few people knowing how to get there. Narrating the journey and having the group look for a way to find the temple can be a great first obstacle to overcome, so why not work with that? Now, this is the first part where I need to use the system as an example, although I promise it'll be brief and to the point. In Dungeons & Dragons, if you want to do a certain action that may or may not succeed, you usually roll a 20-sided die. You then add the relevant attribute modifier to it, and then, finally, your proficiency modifier, if you are proficient in that skill. Your proficiency modifier depends on your level. So far, so simple, but of course just having your players roll can get boring really quickly, so you can and should spice it up a little. Just don't let your players roll on an attribute, but make them describe what they do. This honestly goes for any kind of danger they can encounter from here on out. Make it feel alive, not just like they are rolling to meet a quota. Once they arrive at the temple, a lot of obstacles might be more cerebral. The stairs might be obscured or out of view, or maybe there are some hidden traps in the temple to secure its secret from outsiders. And, of course, there might be wild animals in the forest, ancient guardians in the temple's lower regions, or grave robbers who see the heroes as rivals. When I think of obstacles, I ask myself 3 questions. First, what kind of obstacle is it? Second, how might it be overcome? And third, what kind of reward does it offer? The second question especially is an interesting one, because your players will often surprise you. Your idea about how an obstacle can be defeated might not even cross their minds, but they might have another idea entirely. I know it can be hard, but try to keep an open mind with this. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that the second question, while interesting, is the least important one, while the third one has far more interesting ideas hiding behind it. Sometimes an obstacle offers far more of a reward than simply letting your players pass once they have defeated it. Maybe a new hint for what they are looking for, or another bit of story. But that is something I would like to discuss later, especially how you can make an adventure more individualized for your players. But we will cross that bridge once we get to it. Just like you can make your world feel alive, the same goes for obstacles too. Think about why some wild animals would attack the group, what goals the grave robbers may have, and why there would be a riddle in an apparently ordinary room. A personal pet peeve of mine are rooms that are just there to be a distraction but make no sense when you examine the structure they are built in. Who in their right mind thinks it's a good idea to put 3 medallions in a fountain to open a door? So try to think about why these obstacles would be there, either because they have been set up deliberately or have grown to exist over time. As I said before, getting into the right mindset for this takes time, but you can do it. If you are unsure, just try to give the group one obstacle for every player, which could be their time to shine, and then throw in 1 or 2 more. You don't even need to know how they might be overcome. Just let your players surprise you. After all, they are storytellers too, even though their scope isn't as vast as yours. Let them write the story with you. Now our temple feels much more alive. It has a reason to exist. It has dangers to overcome. But we still aren't done. We still need a good plot, and combat too. Because next time, even though I think combat is slightly overrated, I will tell you how to make boring combat a thing of the past. No more back and forth stabbing, poking and screaming, but truly epic fights your players will feel good about winning. If you liked this video, be sure to tell me by dropping a like and maybe even a kind comment. If you tell me about your ideas and how I helped you shape them, I'd be delighted. Until next time, see you soon.